So you buy a pen, your first fountain pen, and you're not really sure how to fill it. For many experienced pen users, it's completely logical what you do, all the steps involved. But for many people who start out, it's just not that logical. I get a lot of questions from people who say, I don't know, I got a cartridge, I don't know how to put this in, what am I supposed to do? There's a little ball blocking the entrance to the, I know, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry. Today we're going to take care of that. This is going to be a video in which I don't do a lot of talking like this. I have lined up a bunch of pens, and we're just going to see how to fill them up. So I got a cartridge pen, I got a bunch of converters, piston filled pens, an eyedropper filled pen, I've got Vacumatic pens, I got lever filler, I've got a button filler. So I think I have a lot of the common filling systems covered. So that's what we're going to do here. It's just going to be me. You're going to be looking at pens, going to be me looking at me, seeing, looking at me, seeing, filling, doing stuff. How about that? It'd just be me filling pens. I hope that's going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so we have many different filling systems. What I have here is a whole bunch of pens lined up so that we can have a look at different ways to fill pens. Let's start with the most simple thing you can do, and that's probably what many of us have started out with. Cartridges. Lots and lots of cartridges. Now, this may be completely logical to you if you've used pens for a while, but if you have not, then this is new to you, and that's why I want to do this and actually discuss this here. This is called a standard international short cartridge. There are also standard international long cartridges, which obviously are a bit longer. These cartridges fit many pens, but not all pens. And some people were a little bit confused about that, and they sent me questions about this. So here, for example, this is a Lamy cartridge, and as you can see, it's a different shape. Not only is it longer, but the nipple right there is actually different. So it will not fit. These cartridges would not fit a Lamy pen. Okay, don't worry, I'm not going to go through all the cartridges in here, but I just want to show you some differences. Here you have a Schaefer cartridge, very odd tapered design that fits very well, but clearly that's not going to fit pens that fit this, right? Then here you've got a Waterman cartridge, which is, you know, pretty much a standard international long cartridge. As you can see, those two are very similar as to those nipples, but I do believe that the Waterman nipple is just a little bit smaller, so it would not fit every pen, but just to give you an idea of what one of those standard international longs would look like, something like this. Well, then here you've got a Schaefer cartridge, which, as you can see, has it's pretty much the same on both ends. One end has a little ball agitator in there, and the other end is just hard plastic. You always take the end with the ball agitator and you put that into the pen, but I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Some of these cartridges are black. This is a black plastic cartridge. There's no black ink in there. It's completely empty, as you can see, but it's just black plastic. Then here you've got a this is a Pilot cartridge. Is it, or was this platinum? You know, this might well be platinum. Now I'm getting confused. It doesn't really matter. So all I'm saying is this is a completely different shape. You see, that has a very wide mouth. So that's completely different too. And you see the metal ball agitator in there. That ball agitator has, you can see a plastic ball in here perhaps. You can see it roll around. It has a very simple function. If ink, you hold the pen like this, cartridge is in there. If ink gets stuck in there, then it won't be there, right? And then you can't really write. So in that, when something like that happens, the ball agitator can just go back down, break the surface tension of the ink, and the ink will flow down, and then you can write on again. Here we have a Sailor cartridge, which also has a very wide opening, also completely different from standard international. Well, I can just go on and cover every single cartridge that's in here. Here we got Pilot. Yeah, so the other was, this is Pilot, the other one was, this is Platinum. This is platinum. I remember it now. So you can see that these pilot cartridges have an extremely wide mouth, so clearly that would not fit, and thus the story goes on and on and on. Parker cartridges will not fit in many pens, so if you've got a Parker cartridge, which I probably have in here somewhere, except I can't really find one right now, they're also quite long, they look a bit different. This is I marked it at some point, but I can't read my own writing. I think that's supposed to say Waterman, but I'm not. No, this was not Waterman. This was something else. Something Aurora. This is an Aurora cartridge. There we go. So that's different, and I would love to show you a Parker cartridge, but I don't find one, so we're just going to go on because I don't want to waste any more of your precious time. All cartridges work the same way. You take the end with the ball agitator, you take your pen. Here we have a Kaweco Sport Classic, and what you do, you see there's a little thing that sticks out there. I'm not sure why you can see that. You see that? That sort of lancet-like thing. You align the ball agitator end with that, and you stick it in, and you'll hear a pop. There you go. Now the thing is, how do you get this to roll? You can do a couple of things. There's a feed in there that needs to be saturated. You saw what I just did. I squeezed it. You get ink on there. Then you take some paper, and you see it doesn't write. You shake it a bit. This tapping usually works. Gentle tapping, and you write, and you're done. Alright, so that's fairly simple. Now, the next simple thing you can do, one thing I would actually like to demonstrate here with this pen. Some pens have the ability to be converted into an eyedropper pen. Now clearly you're not going to use the pen as an eyedropper, but you will use an eyedropper to fill the pen. Now from this point on I'm going to use water from my Brown Industries container. You need an eyedropper. You draw up ink. I'm using water here because, I mean, bear with me, I have to clean all these pens afterwards. What you do is, you take the barrel of your pen. Let's get this out of the way so we get a good view. Take the barrel of your pen, you take your eyedropper, and you just fill the barrel of your pen. Now what is the advantage of that? The advantage is clearly that you will get a very large ink capacity. Obviously this holds more ink than one of those small international cartridges, right? Now the only thing you need to do here is get some silicone grease, which is difficult to open with one hand. You take your section, you put some silicone grease on those threads, and you can also use a rubber O-ring that you fit around there just to create an extra buffer because you don't want ink to leak out. Then you screw your barrel in place. Now one trick that I learned from Kevin from fountainpenrevolution.com that's absolutely great and that I love, and I want to share that with you too, is you screw the section in almost all the way, then you turn the pen around and you continue to screw. You see that? Water was leaking out there, and that's fine. You put some cloth under it, but now your pen is primed. Clearly I can't write with this because it's water, but that is the fantastic way to prime the feed of an eyedropper pen. So Kevin did very well with that tip. That's just awesome, because otherwise you have to shake the pen and again tap it on the paper to get ink into the feed, you see. So that's a really cool thing. Alright, now the next system that you will probably encounter when you get some more pens is the converter. This is a cross apogee, and this has a cross converter in there. And converters, as with cartridges, sometimes are proprietary. This pen only takes cross converters. That's logical. I've already shown you this is what a cross cartridge looks like, so You will not fit a standard international cartridge in there, just as you won't fit a standard international converter in there. This one screws in. There are also converters that you just pull out, so make sure you know what you've got. Be careful. I always, when I'm not sure and I get a new pen and the converter is installed, I first try to gently screw it, and then it will usually just pop out, and then you know you just stick it in. A converter is a very simple ink pump. You can operate it like this. You see there's a piston in there that pulls back. As it draws back, it will just draw up ink. And that is a very easy way to use a pen, because that means you can use bottled ink or water from your Brown Industries cartridge container thing, ink reservoir-like object. Okay, so I'm going to operate this. There was no water coming in there because there was an air bubble. And now, as you can see, there is water being drawn up. Then I always do that once more. Every time a little bit more air is expelled. And then finally, what you have is a cartridge that's full. You just gently shake that, and then usually what I do is I squeeze out 1 or 2 drops of ink. There might be a little bit of air stuck in your feed. And then pretty much what you do is you wipe the section, get off any ink, and then you can write, because the feed has been primed, because you dip that into your bottle of ink, right? So that's good. And as you can see, it's very simple. That's just a turning knob. You just operate that. I'm going to do it the reverse way, and then you see that my ink, or water in this case, is expelled. So it's a very simple system, and the advantage of using a converter with bottled ink is that usually it's just cheaper. A bottle of ink is cheaper than cartridges, is also a bit friendly on the environment, because you don't have to throw out all the plastic empty cartridges, although you could refill them, and that's a whole different story. Here we have a Parker Frontier. This one has a cartridge converter as well, but this is a different type. This is something that Parker does, and you see that little knob here. It is a slide type converter. You see, that's even simpler than a twist type. I love these things. You just stick them in, stick the pen into your ink, and just a couple of times you pull back, and as you can see, you draw up some water and ink there. Then you get out again 2 or 3 drops, and you should be all set. I'm just expelling my ink there. Then there is a third type of cartridge converter, and that is called Aerometric. And Aerometric goes back quite a long way. Parker 51s already had Aerometric. Well, I guess you could say cartridges, although often they were built in. That doesn't really matter. This is an Aerometric cartridge converter, and I know that this reflects a little bit. That's a little ring that should go on the section. So this is a very simple type. What this is, it's just a bit of plastic and then a little plastic ring there, and usually you got some type of metal protector, and then you have this press bar, and you just push it, and inside of that is a little rubber sac, and when you press that lever, the sac is compressed, air is pushed out, and if you let go, it draws up ink because it wants to decompress. So that's a very simple system, which you just put in there. You always have to squeeze those a couple of times, and at some point you will notice that there are almost no more air bubbles being expelled, and then your pen is full. Now with this system you have to be a little patient, so once you push and you let go, you have to keep it submerged in the water for a few seconds, because that sac is decompressing and it's drawing up ink a bit more slowly than a cartridge converter that has a piston in it. And as you can see, it holds quite a bit of ink, as I just expelled it there. Alright, that was a Pilot Crystal pen. Then, you know, especially when you buy Chinese pens, like this Jinhao Pocket Missile, you will see these Aerometric converters quite a lot. And with this one I can actually show you. I can easily get off that protector. This is that little rubber sac. In this case it's not rubber but some type of silicone, I'm sure, but it's in there, and there's a little breather tube in there that helps in filling, but that's just details. Don't be bothered by all of those. Gently put that back on, of course careful not to twist the little rubber sac, and it works in the same way. So this too, you stick it in, you push that lever, let go, push it again, let go, wait a few seconds, etc. Alright, so that was aerometric converters. Now, some pen manufacturers come up with fascinating systems. This Conway Stewart Winston, for example, actually has a system that is a converter, but it's built in. So you see this little turning knob, you dip this pen in the ink, and then you just operate that knob. First you push the piston down all the way, then you turn it the other way around, and then it will just be, the piston will be drawn up, and it will draw up ink. So this is a converter, but it's built into the pen, and Conway Stewart is not the only one who's done that with this pen. Here we have a Steel Age Homo sapiens from Visconti, and that has that same system. And I'm not sure if the light will pick this up, but under the right light conditions, I have a little flashlight here. You can see sort of the converter in there. You see it? That's just the same nipple as you've seen on some of the converters and cartridges that we've covered before that. So that's a fairly interesting hybrid system where they build in the converter and you're not supposed to take that out. Final example I'll give is also by Visconti in this Divina Desert Springs. Same kind of idea, except this is just a little bit fancier. You pull out that bit and you operate it, piston down, piston up, and once you are done, the pen's full, you push that back in. Alright, now at some point we got a whole new system, which was a vast improvement from, so we started with eyedroppers. That's how fountain pens were filled in the beginning. At some point you got glass cartridges, which made life easier because you could take your ink with you. It's less messy than filling from a bottle. And then at some point we got the piston filler. Now that is a system that really revolutionized the world of fountain pens because it is much easier to use. So here we have a $1 pen, very cheap pen, but this illustrates the principle of the piston filler. This is a blind cap. You can unscrew that. In fact, with this pen you can unscrew it by putting the cap on there, but it doesn't work on every pen. Sometimes the piston turning knob is external, as with this one. I told you that's a built-in converter, but this is what a lot of piston fillers look like too. You just have a knob that you unscrew like that, nothing comes off. But in this pen it is actually necessary to unscrew the blind cap. And then in there you have a piston, which you can see here. You operate it by turning a knob, and that just draws up ink. So this is pretty much the same thing one of those cartridge converters did, except this is built into the pen. So you cannot take this out. I mean, you can if you want to clean it. Some pens that's easier than others, or maybe grease it up a bit, but that's just all it is. And this is very simple too. You just dip the pen into your ink, then you move the piston down. As you can see, I'm expelling air, and then you turn it the other way around, and as you can see, ink is being drawn up, and what you end up with is a nice full pen that has a lot of ink in there. And again, I always expel just 2 or 3 drops of ink to make sure there's no air bubble in the feed, and also to make sure that it doesn't start a leak or is not overfilled or anything. Sometimes that happens. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's about 1 milliliter. And then there's a whole lot more water. This system holds a lot more ink than a cartridge converter ever will. And that's why a lot of people who like collecting pens enjoy this system, because it holds so much ink and it's easy to fill, and it's just nice on the road. Okay, well then we come to a whole different type of filling system. Pretty much everything you've seen, the cartridge and the converter, especially the converter and the piston filler, they depend somehow on creating a vacuum to draw in ink. Well, there are other pens that also do that, and one of the more famous examples is this one, a Parker Vacumatic. So what happens here, in very, very, very brief, is that there is a little rubber thing in there, a diaphragm. And what you do is you unscrew this blind cap, you see this little knob, you push it, and that rubber thing is sort of compressed, and then decompressed. You do that a bunch of times, like that, and then it draws up ink, because that rubber thing creates a vacuum inside the pen. And then lets go, vacuum, lets go, etc. So it draws up ink. So to fill this pen, it's always a little bit maniacal way to do it, but you have to push. So I'm pushing that thing. You wait a bit. Push, wait, push, wait, push, wait, push, wait, push, wait. And at some point, no more air bubbles are expelled, and then your pen is full. I think most people do something like 10 to 15 strokes. I often do a bit more until I'm satisfied. So I didn't keep track, but now I see almost no more air bubbles. Let's see how much ink we got in there. So you see that's a nice amount of ink, a lot of it coming out there. So you've really filled up the barrel with ink. Right, okay. There are other systems that capitalize on the vacuum principle. Here we got an old Soyuz pen from the USSR. Soyuz, depending a bit on how you want to pronounce that. As you can see, very similar principle, right? You got this button, you just squeeze it, and this one I think has an accordion sac in there, compressed, drawn out, etc. And that's so it's the same principle, except this is a different pen. I just want to show you that. Alright, same principle as the Parker Vacumatic, I mean. Now a whole different way to do it was adopted by TWSBI. TWSBI did not invent this system. Now this is a pen, it's a little bit difficult to see, but I think I can make you see this, how this works. There's a little turning knob at the end, and then there's a sort of plunger thing in there, which you can pull back. Now what happens here is that this part of the barrel is very narrow, so you push this back steadily and evenly, and then suddenly you see that the barrel flares out, and then you hear a pop, and that means that so this vacuum is created, and then it pops beyond that, air is drawn back in, and if you submerge that into ink, then you get a lot of ink in there. So let's see if we can do that. I draw this back, you put the nib in there, you see that air is being expelled, boom, there we go, ink is just drawn up. It's not the most clear barrel, it's a smoke gray, so I'm not sure whether you can see it, but water has gone up to this level. So it's a very simple thing. And then usually I do it again, water is being expelled, and ink now reaches up this level. And this system gives you a lot of ink, as you can see here. That's really a lot of ink, a large capacity, so that's quite cool. TWSBI VAC 700. Now then you have another system which was used on other pens, older pens, Schaefer Snorkel for example. But I wanted to show you this one. This is from the Edison Pen Company, the Beaumont Pneumatic, and this works in a similar principle but just a little bit different. So you got a blind cap here which you unscrew. You can see there's a little hole in there, and then you have this brass bar. Now what happens there, inside is a sac, a rubber sac, and when you push this down, you put your finger on that hole, you push down this bar, then the sac inside is compressed because you create a vacuum. You got two bars sliding over each other. And then you let go of that little air hole and ink will be drawn in. So let's see if we can do that here. And now you need to keep that in there because that sac is slowly decompressing and drawing up ink. I think that should do it. Sometimes you actually hear it still drawing in a bit, then you have to do this again. And then what you get is quite some ink. You see that? There was a steady stream of ink. Let's do that once more. Keep it submerged. Sorry, I forgot to... there you go. There was a lot of air being expelled. Just keep it in there. Have a coffee, come back. No, it doesn't take that long. And you get a nice capacity. Quite some ink you can use. Alright. Now an older system, but that you do see, especially if you like vintage pens, you're going to see that a lot, is... I got two different types here, then we're done. The lever filler. You see this gold bar there? It's not actually gold on this one, I'm sure. That's called a lever filler, or a lever filler if you want, in a different part of the world. Very simple system. You got this lever, you draw that out like this. You also got crescent fillers. They have a thing that sticks out that you push. Same idea. You got these with a little slot. You can put a coin in there and operate it, or a matchstick. All kinds of different systems. They all boil down to the same thing. Inside of this, I'm not sure if I can actually... There we go. I've been talking about rubber sacks quite a bit. Well, this is one of them. You see, it's just a rubber sack, and this is compressed. And by compressing it, you draw up, you expel air, and you let go, and you draw up ink. And in this, what you got here is a lever. I'm pretty sure I can't really show you the internal mechanics there, but maybe I can. Let me see if I get my trusty little flashlight out again. I'm not sure how well you can see this. You see something moving in there? That's just a bar. That bar is operated by operating that handle, that lever. Just going to stick that back in there again. Don't just go yanking on vintage pens, please. I know that I could do it with this one. That's why I did it. So with this one, you just push down, that sack is compressed, you let go, you do it again, you let go, you do it again, you let go, and then you should have quite some ink in there. So let's try that. If you withdraw the pen too quickly, you'll hear a sort of, I don't know, an odd slurpy noise like that. That means that the sack indeed decompressed and was decompressing, but it was just sucking in air instead of water, and because there was some liquid on there, you actually hear some bubbles. So at some point you will see that there are no more bubbles being expanded or being expelled, sorry. And then you should be done. So as you can see, you get quite some ink in there depending on the size of the sack. Don't be tempted into putting a huge sack in your pen just because you want more ink, because it doesn't work that way. But it's a nice mechanical system. Now the final system I'd like to show you is a button filler, which is highly related. This is a little knocked up, beaten up pen that I've got here, but that's alright. And knocked up does not mean it expects baby pens, should you wonder. This one is old, it's abused, but it's a button filler, it's the only one I have, so I'm going to show you that. It has a blind cap which you unscrew, and then you see that button. Well, what happens there is a bar that runs. I can't just open this one up because it's a pain to get those things back in there. There's a rubber sack in there, and there is a metal bar that runs along this. And on that metal bar, so the bar runs there, there's a little plate. And what you do is you push that button, and then this bar moves, and it sort of pushes that plate onto the sack, and that will make you draw up ink. Now this is not the best functioning button filler in the world, but I'll try to show you anyway. And again, you wait just a bit after every compression to make sure it decompresses well. Keep it in there. And then you should end up with quite some ink. A very nice, simple system. And that's it. So we have seen a bunch of filling systems today. I hope I haven't bored you to death. Yes, I know I've missed a few filling systems, but this is what I have. I think this is a starting point, and that's all there's to it. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.